Well, the common understanding is that since Russia refuses to hand back Crimea to its rightful owner, which is Ukraine, it is not really any sense talking about it. So the issue has been what is known in diplomatic parlance as parked. And we should instead focus on getting a solution in the Donbass in eastern Ukraine. I think this is wrong, and for several reasons. One is that given that Russia even refuses to acknowledge it's a party to the conflict in the Donbass, it's very hard to get any talks together. In Crimea, Russia is definitely acknowledging everything it has done, although it claims it was rightful. So Russia is at the table and we can start talking. And if we get a deal on Crimea, that could be a backdoor into getting a deal in the Donbass, and that in turn could get the backdoor into solving the problems of the security order in Europe as a whole. And add to that, I believe that the structure of a deal in Crimea would be easier than a structure of a deal in Donbass, because Crimea is a more isolated problem. So, well, it would have to have several steps. The first, obviously, concerns sovereignty. Russia will not hand Crimea back to Ukraine. That's quite obvious. But instead of pursuing a bargaining strategy where you say you have to do as we tell you, a bargaining strategy could be formulated that creates maximum confusion by throwing in Kosovo, the Turkish invasion in Cyprus, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, go back to the Helsinki Final Act. If you throw as many cards as possible on the table, it generates a situation where you can bargain and where everybody can get off the table saying, I got something, and I can sort of make it look to my home audience that I got away with the win. That's important. And we should also remember that the Baltic states were annexed by the Soviet Union, but the West never recognized that formally. Still, it was possible to do business there and to deal with Moscow, although we had this fundamental disagreement. So there is precedent. The second step would need to be a recognition that there is a win-win, and to convince the Russians that there is a win-win. And that is by trade and investment. If we lift sanctions from anybody who comes even close to Crimea, which is the case now, and allow foreign investment and foreign business with Crimea, both from outside and from Ukraine, then that would take a big load off the Russian federal budget, which would be very helpful. So via the business angle, both sides could win. And there's a lot of foreign businesses that would love to go into Crimea with the resort areas and the offshore drilling prospects and all that. So that's an obvious second step. The third step would need to be recognition that Russia does have legitimate security interests in its naval bases in Sevastopol. And if we could give Russia, before the Yanukovych government collapsed, which triggered the crisis and subsequently the war in Ukraine, there was general recognition that Ukraine was non-aligned and should remain non-aligned. So we should go back to that and go back to guarantees that Russia has the naval base in Sevastopol for a long time into the future. That'll diffuse a lot. If we could add some security guarantees that that Ukraine will not shut down water and electricity supply to the bases in times of crisis, and maybe lift sanctions from anybody who wants to build a bridge across the Kerch Strait so that Russia gets a connection to the Russian mainland, that would also create security on the Russian side. So a deal comprising these components, I believe, would be acceptable for the Russians, and it should be acceptable for the West, given the tremendous wins we could get out of it. Oh, I don't think it's likely at all, because Western politicians have been, they've locked themselves so hard into confrontational stance with Mr. Putin and the Kremlin, maintaining the fiction that they're going to force him to do what they want, that they're not really ready to think outside the box. Any talk about Crimea would be, you turn Crimea back to Ukraine or else. Problem is, there is no or else, because we have taken all force options off the table. So Russia knows it'll get away with blue murder, and sanctions aren't working. So I don't think this is something that will happen. But I think it's essential to show that there are options here. And it's essential mainly because if we don't do anything to unlock negotiations that will get Russia back to the table, then the alternative is simply frightening. I mean, the war in the Donbass is going to start again very soon, probably. We're going to have a Minsk III, a new peace agreement that nobody believes in, and meanwhile, Ukraine is collapsing. And we cannot allow that to happen. So it's high time now to start thinking about something that people have already said is unthinkable, namely start with Crimea and go from Crimea to the Donbass, and from there to get Russia back to the international bargaining table for a solution for getting us all back on track on cooperative security in Europe. This is really important. The alternative is simply frightening.